What's good, y'all? Welcome to the first episode of the Eighth Dimension podcast. It's been a long time coming. Been wanting to do this for a while now, and I'm excited to get it started and start this journey with y'all. And I appreciate you guys for stopping in and giving me some of your time and just listening to what I have to say. This podcast is going to be about getting vulnerable and talking about the deepest, lowest points of your life and how to get through them, and just things that you could do to help yourself get through them, and from personal experiences and the people that I have on this show talk about their experiences and what helped them. And we'll be talking about psychedelic therapy, psilocybin therapy, how those things help with anxiety and depression, and talking about abstract ideas and conspiracy theories and whatever we feel like talking about during that day in that segment. So with that being said, we'll get into what this first episode is going to be about, and it's going to be my story and what led me to psilocybin therapy and how I got there and what it helped me with, and yeah. So I guess we'll start off with the first thing is just defining spirituality and just becoming a more spiritual whole person. And for me, the definition of spirituality isn't necessarily about finding an identity and finding like something to be a part of. It's about just releasing all the identities that people have put you in and that the world has put you in, and just releasing those things and the boxes that this society has tried to put you in, and just learning more about yourself, understanding your mind and your body and how it works on a completely different level than you've ever experienced before, and just accepting the fact that there is not just one singular truth, that there's many different truths for everybody and many different possibilities of literally anything, and just having the openness to learn and just hear things and have different perspectives on them, and not just seeing life through one singular lens that this is how it is. It's the way to look at life in many different lenses and infinite lenses, because that's acknowledging that you don't know everything and that you're open to learning and experiencing new things. So that's my definition. It's kind of long, but whatever. So I guess we'll start off with me and my life and how I got to psilocybin therapy. So as some of you guys know, I've been an athlete my whole life. Kind of figured at a young age that I didn't really like school. I didn't like the establishment of just going to school every day, learning stuff that felt pointless, and then going and getting a regular job and just working until I'm retired, and then going and experiencing the world. You know, I always felt like there was a bigger picture and a bigger meaning to this whole life thing, and always was just asking questions and questioning everything, as we all should, because at some point in your life you get to a point where you start to realize everything you've been told that you are and everything that you've been learning your whole life is kind of a lie, and there's many different ways to get through life, and there's many different ways to succeed in life. So with that being said, growing up as an athlete and figuring out that was my only way to go be successful in the system that I knew, which was get through school, go to college, get a degree, and then get a good job. And that's kind of like what we've all been told at a young age, that we need to go to school, we need to go to college, get a degree to get a good job. And so since I wasn't necessarily in the right mind space and frame to really absorb what I was learning in school, because I didn't believe in it and I didn't want to. I always felt like everything should feel like an adventure, and school didn't feel like that for me. So I was always just that kid acting out in school, the class clown kid that just was trying to make everybody laugh, and that's about it. A lot of teachers gave up on me, and rightfully so. They knew I wasn't there trying to learn, and they weren't going to be my babysitter. So it is what it is. I had a couple teachers later on in life that didn't give up on me and kind of helped me get through school and figure out like why I was the way that I was, which was really cool and dope. And I appreciate those teachers for helping me learn more about myself and get me to the next level of just being a better student overall. And so growing up as an athlete, kind of was just like, my performance on the field determines the type of love that I get. And being raised in a household where I wasn't allowed to show emotions, wasn't allowed to show any weakness, I wasn't allowed to speak my mind or talk about what was going on in my mind. I became a person that held in everything that I was feeling, all my emotions, not able to process anything, not able to understand anything, and I always had like a lot of pent up anger and just emotions, and luckily I had sports as an outlet to use that energy to to expel it in something else, So with that being said, life's about understanding your dark side and your light side, because without the dark there can't be any light. And from what I've learned is that you have to go through the dark times, you have to go through the hard times and the times that you don't think that you're gonna get through, because without those times you won't have. I kind of look at it as like a bow. You take a bow back and you shoot it. The farther you dig down, the farther that you get whatever in a hole or whatever. The more momentum you have coming back out of it once you start to learn and just understand the dark sides of yourself and the dark sides of like your mind and what's happening to yourself. So there was always this huge pressure on me to just make it to the highest level and be the best that I am at whatever it is, whatever sport that I'm doing. That was always the goal, and I was raised that way, My father had been through a lot in his life. His father committed suicide when he was a young boy, and so the way that my dad survived going through life was the way that he taught me, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no handbook or each single one of us, each kid that you have or that your parents have, we're all different. We're all unique in different ways. We all think differently. We all just do things differently. And so it's up to our parents and just the people around us to try their best to understand us and to help us just become overall better people. But with that being said, my dad had a very hard life, and to survive in his life and to become a successful man, he had to not show emotions and not be getting affected by his emotions and kind of just get through his everyday life. He was going through a lot, and so most of the time in society as well anyways, like as a man, you're not supposed to look weak, to cry, show emotions, or any of that type of stuff. And that's just like a normal societal norm that's been placed on male figures. So that's what he taught me, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's my job as a person, and all of our jobs as a person, and as we get older, to understand these things that our parents, even though we look to them as superheroes and that people that aren't flawed and are just the best ever, even if they are the best ever and we think that they're the best ever, everybody's flawed. We all are. And it's up to us to learn and understand those things and never hold grudges or be angry at those certain things. It's all love at the end of the day, and they're doing the best that they could with what they were given. So yeah. And going through middle school was probably the toughest time for me. I was struggling in school. I didn't want to go to this to Bosco's private high school that I was on path to go to. So I was trying to fail myself out of school. I was in and out of the principal's office all the time. In every school that I've been to, elementary, middle school, I was just always somehow had a nose of getting into trouble. I was that kid that everybody's parents told them not to hang out with because that kid's up to no good always. And half the time they're probably right. I wasn't up to any good. I'm somebody who wants to experience life to the fullest, and a lot of people don't really understand that sometimes, and even I don't understand that sometimes. But as I've gotten older, I've become more logical and been able to make better decisions and not act on impulses and not act on my emotions. So one of my teachers saves me. I end up going to Bosco, and I'm still on path to use this football and these sports to get me to college and get a degree, because I felt like if I didn't play sports, there was absolutely zero chance I was gonna go to college and get a degree. And to me, in my lifetime and in my life, that's all that mattered, was just getting a college degree. So sophomore year, I started smoking weed, and that's kind of like the gateway drug, as they always say, for everybody. And started smoking every day, and continuously just being high all the time, and just kept getting worse and worse. And it led to me trying Xanax, painkillers, muscle relaxers, and just like other things along that line. Because everybody in my life, my friends and everybody, it was kind of like a pill pandemic. Like back when I was in high school, everybody was high off the Xans, just smoking and doing painkillers, and my 3 best friends were all doing the same thing, and so it was kind of hard to get away from it. My best childhood friend, actually, we didn't go to the same high school. He ended up going to school in our area where we were from, got involved with the wrong people, became addicted to Xans and just other things, and ended up going to juvie for our last 2 years of high school. And that like really fucked me up, and was the first time where I kind of stopped and looked around, and I was like, damn, like this pill problem is like actually a problem. Like I gotta do something about it. But at the same time, like when you're in that substance abuse mindset of just wanting to get high all the time, like you tell yourself those things, but like it's hard to like act on them, because at the same time you want to just like be high. And I guess the start of just smoking weed and just getting high all the time was coming from this life that I had built for myself, and becoming like an athlete and somebody that is good at sports. I always felt like the attention was kind of like weird. The fact that if you're good at a sport, people will treat you like you're a superior human being to like other humans. They don't treat you as an equal. So I started like having this like ego that most people get when they start having success and things, and I didn't really like it, and I also just didn't really feel like I was ever able to be myself. So when I did smoke, I had a little window of time where all these things that I was trying to do, all these goals that I was trying to make, and all these people that I'm trying to make happy, I kind of had like a break to be myself, a break from like my mind and all the stuff that was going on in my mind, and just was always just like a nice way to calm my mind and to kind of like shut it off and just like enjoy where I was at. And so that became addicting, like not being one alone with my thoughts, and just kind of shutting that part of my brain down and just being able to live life, because I could do everything that I wanted to do just high off smoking a J. I could go literally do all the stuff that I'm not that I'm supposed to do not high, I could still do it while I was high. I was a very high functioning, just high person. And so later on in high school, junior year, started dabbling with all those pills. Two of my best friends, one of them's in juvie now. My two other best friends are addicted as well, and it's just kind of like a battle, like fighting, just being high all the time and getting through life. I don't know how I was able to do any of the stuff that I did and that I was doing. I was very good at hiding it all, and it was just a blessing and a curse at the same time. So junior year, my homie Brent, he's an Australian, amazing Australian kid, one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. Moved in with me and my family, and before he had moved in, he was already addicted to Xans as well. And he wanted to be a college athlete, and we had the same goals, and so he lived with us for a little bit until our pill problem got out of hand, and my dad split us up, and I kicked him out the house, and unfortunately didn't really help either of us, because we both had problems, and it was tough. And going into senior year, I was still the same, was able to function and do everything I needed to do, and was just always I'm just the type of person that never says no to anybody. Anybody has an idea, I'm always gonna say yes. And so I'm building more of a name for myself. The ego keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I'm not necessarily like treating people bad or like treating people horrible. It's kind of just like the way that I was getting treated, that I was better than everybody, and the way that I felt was like I'm not better than everybody. I'm just like this fucking high kid that's can't figure out life and figure out like what's going on inside my mind and why I feel like I need to be high all the time. And I end up second semester getting kicked out of Bosco and going to a school nearby where I'm from, and the problem just keeps getting worse. I end up losing like 15 pounds, and this is like the summer leading up into going to college, when I should be working out, getting stronger, and getting ready to go play college ball. But I just couldn't get out of that rut of just substance abuse and just running away from I guess my insecurities and my mind. I was just always looking for that break that I could just be myself and just be doing whatever, I guess. So I get to college, still smoking every day. After this amazing high school career or whatever, and I have like a pretty decent sized ego, thinking like I'm still the man, and come into practice, I'm like what I weighed my sophomore year in high school, like 170 pounds, barely, and I'm doing really well. I'm actually like performing great on the field, doing great things. I like felt great because I had guys like John Ross coming up to me telling me like, yo, there's no way you're not gonna be on the field this year or redshirt, like you've been balling and doing well. And so that makes me feel even better, like, oh, I'm doing good, this and that. End up redshirting, and once I end up redshirting, I'm like, fuck it, like let me just get this college experience, let me go turn up and go do all these things. And redshirting, for what, if you guys don't know, is basically getting held back, but in like an athletics standpoint. So I go to practice every day, I do all the same stuff, but I don't suit up for the games or play in any of the games that season, and I get to keep a year of eligibility at the end of I still have 4 years after that first year. It's kind of just like getting held back. So going through college, trying to first time on your own, first time kind of just like making my own rules, and um, at the same time like I needed some structure because even in high school, my senior year, I was out sneaking out every night till 3 a.m. smoking, and 2 in the morning smoking, and just like somehow getting through life off of 3 or 4 hours of sleep every day. So I came into college with like a horrible sleep schedule, a horrible just way of taking care of myself, and so I carried over. All I kind of care about this redshirt year is like going to as many parties as possible, getting as turned as possible, because I have this mindset of I want to experience everything. And Tater, get your butt out the screen. This is Tater. She's really cool. But yeah, so I make it all the way through freshman year, get to my sophomore year, things are going well, still handling business, doing what I need to do on the field. Halfway through the season, I fail a drug test, and I knew the drug test was coming, so I stopped smoking for like 40 days, but I had been smoking every day of my life, all the time, for 5 years straight now, and I needed more time than 40 days to pass this drug test. And it was I've been in trouble many times in my life, and I had made a promise to my parents that I wouldn't get in trouble anymore. And so failing this drug test sucked because I had to call them. I got suspended for a game, and it was just like a sad time, just fucking up not another opportunity, you know. Got suspended for a game, lost my spot, and then stopped playing the rest of that season, kind of, and lost a lot of respect from the coaches, and just the funniest. I mean, I don't know if you guys will find it funny, but when I went up to Coach Pete's office and I had this drug test, or like I failed this test, he was like, "You know why you're in here?" I was like, "Nah, not at all," because I had 100% thought I passed. So I was like, "There's no way. Like, what am I in here for?" And he's like, "Well, you failed the drug test," and I was like, I said no way, because I was like, I actually haven't been smoking. I was like, I haven't been smoking. But our drug test for like the most 5 nanograms, which is like the smallest amount of THC you could ever test for in like any drug test. To fly a commercial airline plane, if I wanted to be a pilot for United Airlines or whatever, like it would be like 30 nanograms. So it was kind of crazy. But he was like, you know what, Magoo? It was only a matter of time before I got you. I always knew you were a dope smoker. And which rightfully so, he caught me, and I wasn't the only one that failed. There's many people that failed drug tests on the team. Some people didn't get suspended though, like I did, and other people did. You could see picked and choose who he wanted to punish harder than others. But at the end of the day, it's like my fault anyways for not following the team rules or living up to his expectations. And it was sad to me was that I had always been using weed to just cope with life, and a lot of us do. On any football team, 50% of the team is smoking dope almost every day, at least. Because we don't have the time to go party and go do all the things that like normal people do. We like to just sit on the couch, smoke a J, and just relax. Like that's what we do. So instead of him trying to like understand that aspect of like his players and like us, it was kind of like naive to me, like that he really thought that nobody was like actually smoking weed, when the best UW football team of all time, the year we went to the college football playoff, we were having like 30-person team hot boxes at like people's houses and shit, for like team bonding, which was awesome and amazing. Some of like the best times ever. But just the fact that it was like that's what was actually happening, and then for him to like think that nobody smokes weed, it's just like, come on, bro, you gotta understand your players a little better and just understand us like as a whole. But I'm not here making excuses or whatever. Like, that's on me. At the end of the day, it's just fucking weed. I should have been able to just not smoke weed, and everything would have been fine. But if I didn't fail that drug test, then it wouldn't have led me on this path of like finding psilocybin. So failed that drug test. I get drug tested every other week for 2 years, which kind of spiraled me out of control, because any time I was having a hard time in my life, or I was struggling, or just anything, I'd always just spark up and just smoke a J, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I'm like online, and I had just finally, once I got to college, actually, I stopped taking pills, and I stopped doing all just that type of stuff. And once I failed this drug test, I got a bad nicotine addiction, and I was just trying to Google things like which drugs can get out of your system fast. And for that, it was painkillers, coke, and Xans. I think, I can't remember how long Xan stays in your system, but those are all get out of your system fast. So anytime I had just had a drug test, I would always go out afterwards and go try and find those things, and things that would get out of my system fast. And I know for a lot of people, or like for a couple of dudes on the team that failed drug tests and couldn't smoke anymore, they were going through the same thing I was going through, trying to find ways to cope, because there's obviously like many different ways to cope with addictions and just to cope with life, like meditating, talking to a therapist, and just getting help in those ways. But at the same time, sometimes those things don't really work, and for where people are at in their life, you know. And so I didn't end up going to a therapist or anybody. We had to talk to a team doctor like 3 separate times about just like why we do smoke, and they would just give us some like alternatives, but like it's just like an alternative that isn't really gonna be that helpful for somebody that's struggling with addictions. So I'm going crazy, doing all these drugs, never saying no to anybody. If it gets out of my system fast, I'm like, hell yeah, like let's do it. So that was me for a good year. And then the first time I did mushrooms was within that year, I'm pretty sure. And there was just like 7 of us on the team. We decided we were just gonna go do mushrooms somewhere super cool, and just like outdoors at an awesome place. And it was the first time that I had been able to have that pause and that time to myself, where all of my problems and all of my things that was going on in my life and that I was thinking about kind of like vanished, and they went away. Made me realize that like we're literally tiny dots on a tiny little planet in the middle of like a whole huge universe, and that a lot of the stuff I'm stressing about doesn't actually fucking matter whatsoever. And so I kind of realized that from this first trip, I was like, all this like stuff I'm caring about, this ego that I used to have, and all this like stuff about football, like doesn't matter. And I'm having an amazing time with some of my closest friends, and we all grew closer together, and we all bonded. And I remember vividly standing in between 2 trees with my feet in the grass, like with no shoes on, and I'm like looking at the trees, and it looked like when I was inhaling and exhaling that it was doing it at the same time. In the leaves, they were moving up and down, like as I was breathing, like they were connected to me, and we were like connected together, and that the trees were literally like helping me breathe like an extra pair of lungs, and it just made me feel extremely connected to the world and just the earth and just like everybody around me, and it made me understand like in that moment that regardless of like what we think and all these individualistic aspects of life that we try to succeed in and conquer and do all these things and goals that we have, that in reality the greatest thing like in life is just sharing your experiences with people and like experiencing life with other people. And I mean, I kind of always knew that. It was just like life's better when you have great friends. But like on a deeper level, it kind of like made me realize that this is how life should be, and this is like how I should be thinking, kind of, instead of just always thinking about like where I'm trying to go and like what goals I'm trying to do and make, and in that aspect of it, kind of, I guess. So that was my first time, and it was kind of like the one side of the lens that I've been looking through life this whole time broke off, and I was seeing like half of the bigger picture. And so I'm still trying to rebuild my image and just like become like a better person on the team, and but now I don't have this like ego anymore. I kind of just like, I'm just a person, and I'm just there, and I realize I'm like, yo, only thing that matters now is me just waking up, getting better, and just trying to be a better me. Like fuck everything else. Like as long as it's just me versus me in the mirror every day, then that's all that matters. Whether I'm on the field playing a lot, whether I'm like getting in the game a lot or anything, like all that mattered now was I'd finally turned my mindset into, fuck, what, I'm waking up, I gotta do all this bullshit at 6 a.m, grind my ass off, and then do it for no reason, to just go out there and just not even play. Turn from that to I get to wake up and get better today, which was very like just awesome, because I never thought I would get to that point, you know. So I'm trying to think. Going into the 2019 season, everything starts to go downhill again, and I start to get into the worst time in my life. At the beginning of the 2019 year, one of my best friends, Bryce, passed away, and a couple months later, I was in a relationship with somebody I'd been in a relationship for like 5 years. We break up, and you guys obviously know breakups suck, and to me that was kind of like another best friend passing away, and Bryce is just like an amazing soul, an amazing person. He's probably the person that stayed true to himself the most I've ever seen anybody stay true to themselves. So he very like inspired me a lot to just keep going and keep moving forward, and just try to live the best way that I can, and let his energy kind of like flow through me, and just be myself, you know, more than I used to, because I knew that's what he would want. And then going into that season, I started doing shrooms almost every weekend after those two things happened, and those like instated that mindset that I had of just waking up and getting better every day. That I was like, the only thing that matters is just waking up and becoming the best me possible. And at this time, even though those two things had happened to me, and it was like extremely tough, being raised to not show any emotions or not validate any of my feelings, or um, like just acknowledge that they exist, I was still like that, and I still wasn't shedding any tears. I still wasn't like I was sad, but like I was letting it out every morning, working out and football, and then just getting, just figuring out ways outside of football to keep my mind off of those things. But like the hurt and the pain was like just building up inside of me, and I was just a numb person. And I kind of guess I've been a numb person my whole life in general, to begin with. But I was like extremely numb at this point where I literally couldn't feel anything. And I still have this like little bit of like an ego because I'm not getting the love that I feel like I deserve while I'm playing ball or whatever. So I have like a roster of girls always at all times that I would just help me like validate this like ego and that I'm still like the shit or whatever. Because as like men growing up, you think like having a bunch of girls is like cool and shit, and I just like didn't want to be alone. So just the fact that like I could have girls over and just kicking it with me, like would like validate like that I'm still like a successful like man, that like I can still get girls and shit, which is dumb as fuck. And so going into that season, Brent, my guy that I was talking about that lived with me and my family, he passed away. And this is when I knew I was like super fucked up. Was I didn't even tell anybody, on any of my coaches or like anybody, that like one of my other best friends had just passed away. We were in the middle of fall camp because I was in fear that if I skipped practice to go to his funeral, I wouldn't be able to like be the starting running back that season, because that was my goal and that was all that mattered, which was totally wrong and totally not where my mind should have been. I should have been at Brent's funeral saying bye to him and seeing him for the last time that I could see him. And again, I use that sadness and pain and darkness that came from that situation to help me be a better football player and help me work harder and help me do this. So in going into that season, first 6 games, I'm actually having the best season of my college career. 'Cause like I said, like you got to use the darkness. There's no light without dark, and going into that season, I had a lot of darkness in me, and I used it, and like it helped me on the field. But once game 6 happened, I got hurt my ankle. I missed the last 6 games of the season, which was tough because I had finally became the starting running back and made it to where I wanted to be, and where my like superficial goals that I had for myself at that time period of my life, I had made it, and I knew I was just like, damn, like I can't catch a break. It's just thing after thing, and after that season, like a month after the season ended, my nana passed away. And then like a couple months after that, I had surgery on my ankle, and that's when I finally like reached the bottom of the bottom. As well as, also forgot to mention, my homie Mark, one of my childhood friends, that I played baseball with my whole life. He got killed by a drunk driver, and so all these people are dying and just like leaving my life, and I'm just like up here in college like by myself, and I'm not really like the type of person to tell people what I'm going through or want to burden people with my problems, and I'm just gonna wake up and go to my workouts, and that's my life. Like I became a robot that couldn't feel anything and didn't know how to feel, and I'm struggling hard. I can't smoke weed anymore. I can't like have a pause or like a release. I don't know how to release anything. And I get back into shrooms again, and I start taking shrooms all the time, like every weekend, Friday and Saturday. And I'm not taking micro doses. I'm taking an eighth at a time, an eighth to 7 grams at a time, and just sitting in my room and just like looking at the ceiling, and just like finally like I'm able to let out a couple tears like every now and then. But I start thinking about, like, for the first time in my life, like, all right, who am I outside of football? If I couldn't play football tomorrow, would I be okay? And like, who would I be? As well as I'm thinking about all these ways that I could have been a better friend and just a better grandson to my nana, and like picking up the phone a few times. I looked at the phone and I let it go to voicemail. Like my homie Mark, he was stationed up here in Seattle, like in the military. He hit me up a couple times asking for tickets to a game, and I never had tickets for him. Not because I didn't actually have tickets for him. Like, I just forgot some of the times. Like, some of the games where I did have an extra ticket, like, that didn't cross my mind. And I'm just like, what? Like, come on, bro. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why couldn't you remember that? And just have been a better friend and been just a better person to everybody all around you all the time. In terms of, like, Bryce, like, my senior year, we threw hands, and he got me. He pieced me up, and I just wish I would have actually apologized for whatever I had said that got him angry enough to do that. And he's not here anymore, and I couldn't say that to him. And for Brent, like, there was just so much like that I felt like I could have done and been a better friend for him. And that I had convinced myself that, like, it was my fault that he's not here anymore. Like, it was me not being a good enough friend and not being there for him, that, like, I, like, could have, like, actually saved him. And I still feel like that to this day. And, like, I had all these things and emotions and feelings towards me not being a good enough, like, human being to these people that I cared about deeply, and I couldn't forgive myself. I didn't know how to forgive myself, and like, it just kept getting worse, because although I was like letting out a few tears and like letting out emotions for the first time in my life and like feeling stuff, which was cool at the same time. Laying in my bed, like tripping balls and like having Kid Cudi playing in the background, or like some of my favorite songs that like helped me through my hardest times. I'm just like looking at the ceiling and just letting tears like roll down my face for the first time in my life. Like not letting anybody see me be weak, but like I'm like smiling. Like, I'm like, whoa, this is what it's like to show emotion and to like be a human. Like, this is what it's like to feel something. And because I've been like that my whole life, I had a hard time also just like talking about my feelings and my emotions. So if I ever did want to go talk to somebody about it, like, it would be very awkward and weird, because I was just like, it was foreign to me. So I'm like struggling at this point in my life. I'm waking up and I have workouts to go to, and I have things and obligations to be at, and I'm just like, bro, like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't physically want to be on this in this realm, and I wanted to die. Every day I woke up and I wanted to die. Um, and it was just a very, very hard time um, for me, and just luckily I had a few friends that checked up on me and like kept me going. But um, it makes sense to why we have people like the girl on the Stanford soccer team who was an All-American and won an award for the best soccer player in the country, and other athletes in college like committing suicide, because we're on this schedule that's like inhumane, and we can't stop. We can't pause. We can't put a pause on life. We can't reflect. We can't, like, we have no time to be just a human and act like what we're going through is a real valid thing. It's just like we gotta be here. We got workouts. We got meetings. We got this and that, class, everything, all the time, nonstop, year round. And we're just fucking kids, bro. Like, we're kids at the end of the day. Like, we have absolutely no fucking idea at this time period in our life, what we should, how we should be feeling, what we should be like doing to help ourselves fully, to like help us get out of these things, you know. Like, a lot of us are all like people that have never had to ask for help and never had to go out of the way to get help. Like, mental health wasn't something that was talked about, but it wasn't up until like when I was in college. It was kind of just the beginning of it, and it's like a real thing, like but because we are at this high level of competing and this high level of doing something that nobody else will get to do, people just expect us to like be happy because like we're doing this amazing thing that nobody else gets to experience, but they don't understand the work that goes into it and understand like the sacrifices that we make as people to get to that level, and that we're regular human beings on like an emotional level, just like they are, and then we're battling and coming back and just going nonstop, trying to progress and get better at this craft that we do. So going into the COVID year, we that summer I'm deep in the psychedelics, and I'm deep in doing mushrooms all the time because I'm trying to figure out like why I can't forgive myself, and who am I outside of football, and like what am I gonna do, what am I gonna be, and like would I be okay if I couldn't play football tomorrow, because that's all I've done my whole life, that's all I've known, and that's all I've like ever just known is wake up, get to work, and that's about it. Like nothing else. It's just that. And once I was able to answer that question of I'm a human being that's capable of doing anything that I possibly could imagine, whatever I put my mind to and whatever I feel like doing, I can do it if I just go do it and I go work hard in a different aspect of, or a different lane in life. I will be successful in whatever it is that I want to do. And until I told myself that, and until I gave myself props that, yo, you're a college athlete, you made it farther than most people will ever make it in their entire life. Be proud of yourself. Once I started telling myself those things and had those realizations that, yo, if I don't go to the NFL, like, you're a failure. Like, that's what most of us think. Like, if you don't go to the league, you're a failure, because that's what our whole life is built up to try and get there. And once I had this realization that I can do anything that I want outside of outside of ball. Um, it was just very eye-opening and freeing, a freeing feeling, because my whole life I had never really believed in my mind and like what I had to offer outside of my physical gifts. Um, so to finally like believe in myself outside of my physical gifts, and like what I have to offer in like an athletic aspect, it was very freeing. But then I also had this anxiety that came with it because I felt like I'm not like an academic. I'm not. I don't have the vocabulary or the book smarts of somebody who's like spent their whole life like actually studying scholastic material their whole life. So it was still hard for me to believe in that I have something to offer outside of that. But as time went on, it gets better. The more situations you put yourself in where you can speak and just talk about things, you realize that that goes away. Um, but I going into that season, um, the season got canceled, and I had still not been able to release and forgive myself. So season gets canceled. I end up saying, "Fuck it, I'm gonna like road trip back home because I don't know how long I'm gonna be home, and I want to have my car while I'm back home." So I pack up the whip. I route the longest way home down the coast. It ends up taking me 4 days, and on this road trip, I was waking up and eating an eighth of shrooms and driving until the shrooms wore off. Eating another eighth and driving is mostly like 5 hours for me, and 5 hours at a time, and stopping along the way at places that I felt like were cool. But there was a time where one of my favorite songs came on, and it's kind of just about like the dead homies and just like how much you miss them and love them. And because psilocybin and shrooms kind of raises your emotions and your feelings and just everything inside you, I broke down and I cried, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, having a conversation with all my fallen soldiers that aren't here anymore, and just letting them know everything that I felt bad for, everything that I felt like I could have did better as a friend, as a grandson, and just as a person. Like while they were still here, I was letting it out at the top of my lungs so I know they could hear me, and just having this release for 30 minutes. And the first time I'd ever like had a release like that, or ever like had like just a very emotional crying session. And like if I didn't have mushrooms or psilocybin, I feel like I never would have been able to release those things and release the weights that I had been carrying for so long, about who I was in my past life and the type of person that I was, and like just feeling bad for myself. And once that happened, I kind of felt reborn and realized that it's okay to show emotions. It's okay to feel those things. It's okay to cry and like release things that don't like just everything that's inside you, because I've been taught my whole life that that's a weakness and that's not good, and just being able to do that was just an incredible moment. And I know for me and in my experiences, like eating mushrooms is like going to a therapist, and it's like you're like holding up a mirror of like in front of yourself, and it's just you, and you get to see like who you are on a deeper level of like why you are the way you are, like why you think the way you think, like processing things from your past life, like why did this moment in time affect me the way that it did and made me change the way I look at things forever. And then you would go back and reflect on these things, and you're like understanding them on a deeper level, to understand that you don't need to be this way, or you shouldn't be this way, or you shouldn't act this way anymore. Just like one of the times the first couple times, I'm just thinking like, damn, bro, like I hope anybody that I ever like said anything to negatively when I was like a little kid in elementary school, like I hope that whoever I hurt back then, like I didn't fuck up their whole life trajectory in like a bad direction, because you start to realize and understand, like as a whole and as a community and everybody in this world, we're all equals and we're all the same, and we're all just trying to do the best that we can, and like we all have absolutely no fucking idea what's going on, but we all try to make it make sense in whatever way makes it feel comfortable for us. And so once you get to like that level of like self-awareness and like consciousness, it's just like it's very eye-opening to see and understand like what makes you who you are on a different level. And I guess I'll end with like these three things, and I feel like the only way to really rewire and change your mind is with love, and love is something that's a new experience, and something that is just a feeling that you never really get to recreate. And just like receiving love and giving love rewires your brain in a different way to just be a more loving being overall. And then obviously like traumatic events, like you go, like you see your friend and he's dead, like you see some fucked up shit and you're never gonna be the same again after that. And like from that moment forward, that's gonna dictate kind of in the way you look at life differently because of that, and you don't want to get hurt again like that. So you start acting different accordingly, and because it rewires your brain. And then psychedelics gives you the opportunity to rewire your brain in the form of all the preconceived notions and walls that you have up, and like that this is how life should be. You get to knock them all down, and you get to like restart and kind of like build them up again from like the start, and just like in a way where you have a broader perspective on life and a bigger perspective on how to look at things. It opens your mind to just new, like to being open, I guess, is it opens you up to a world that you've never seen or even thought was possible, because you finally broke the lenses that you've been taught to look at life through. And those three things are like, to me, the only ways that you can really change the way that you perceive and act in this lifetime. And to go to be, I guess in the second episode, because this is getting long, I didn't expect it to be this long. I'll go into what to expect and how to kind of like train yourself and just set the right intentions and do what you need to do to be able to take some psilocybin, take some mushrooms, and what to expect and how you're gonna feel, and just and certain things along those lines. And if you want to watch a cool documentary, there's a documentary on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind, and it's a guy who's about like 70 years old, and he's open to learning new perspectives and just open to learning still. And he's going through a psychedelic journey and taking different psychedelics to try and understand his mind and understand the way that he operates and the way that he works, and the benefits that it would have for him, and then as well as the benefits that it has for society in a whole. And for me, I think psilocybin and this type of medicine is like the future, and is what's really going to help the world. And now that it's less kind of like taboo and less looked at less harshly in a way. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because we're kind of in a new age of an awakening, and I'm excited to keep having these types of conversations with y'all, and thank you for stopping by and giving me your time again, and I'll see you guys in episode 2. Have a great rest of your day.